with my first question, and Dean Adil, I will pose this to you. Do you think AI can really transform healthcare, especially in underserved populations like ours, or do you think the technological and infrastructure gaps will actually make equity even more disparate?
Assalamu alaikum, and before I answer the question, let me just tell you how thrilled I am to be on this panel with yourself and, of course, our esteemed colleagues from Aga Khan. So this has become somehow an all Aga Khan panel, and we're thrilled to be here. I also want to thank, of course, the School of Tomorrow concept and Beacon House leadership, and especially Qasim Qusuri for thinking and putting on such a great event. And Nargis, Heather, thank you for inviting us to be here. We're thrilled, all of us, we really are. Now, your contention that will AI actually cause a larger divide, I can see the concern. I can see the concern. But I got to tell you that I honestly believe that AI is not just a tool, but in fact, AI will drive a revolution in healthcare that will really mitigate disparities and issues with access. If you think about it, there are three things that drive disparities. And if it's okay, can I break them down a little bit?
Is it right? Sure, absolutely.
So the first, of course, is access to care, right? I mean, if you don't have care, how will you ever get better? So that's the first. The second is, of course, the quality of care. So the kind of care you're receiving, in some places, some kind of hospitals you go to, the care is terrible, the facilities are not good, the human power is not up to par. And then the third way people can perceive bad healthcare is if the care is not patient-centered, if the care makes a person feel like they're not important. And in all three of these areas, I feel like AI can really add to what the offerings are. So if you think about access, right? I mean, we've seen the emergence of telemedicine, but it hasn't gotten so far because if you think about it, to do telemedicine, fine, you take away the distance, but the doctors, nurses, other healthcare providers you still need those same number of people. But if you use AI, you can probably augment drastically the number of people who can then be there, right? So that's the first thing. So because you would increase the number of healthcare providers using AI by training through AI or using AI itself, like the moderator here or the AI avatar we have, you could increase the number of people who could be treated. The second thing is quality. So the issue is that if you go to some facility or some doctor who may have variable levels of training, ye doctor acha hai, ye doctor acha nahi hai, this doctor knows how to provide good quality of care. If you use AI, you can actually level the playing field and give doctors tools and healthcare provider tools so that they raise the boat for everyone. And then everyone starts getting the same high level of care using evidence-based technologies. And then the third thing was about how you feel. And this is where I think AI, we all worry that AI may make us feel, when we go to the doctor, may make us feel even more isolated or even more कि भाई अब तो हमको AI bot से बात करनी पड़ी है, देखें ये bot जो है इससे बात करनी पड़ी, doctors तो हमें मिल ही नहीं रहे. So it could make you feel like it's not patient-centered. But I think there's a way to change that. I think you can make it such that when you actually go to the physician, and the physician or nurse or whoever it is, you know, they have a million other things going on and you feel like they're not giving you full attention. But the AI, if you interact with it directly, you could create a system where it gives direct attention to the patient at all times. And the patient really feels heard. And then it follows up with the patient and makes sure that the patient's treatment plan is adhered to. And the hazaron sawal jo hote hain hamare paas, after getting a treatment or doctor ne ye baat ki, we want to ask 10 people about it, the AI can answer all of those questions. So on all three accounts, I think AI can bridge the divide by ensuring increased access, by improving the overall quality, and then of course enhancing the patient-centeredness of care, which as a physician I must tell you, I feel is the most important thing that we do.
Thank you so much. So there are a few key messages जो Dean Adil के इस छोटे से उसमें थे, augmenting care, and I think we will keep alluding to this. This is not here to replace us. That is the biggest worry when we start talking about AI. Augmentation is the key, and quality. So the Lancet Commission, of course, being medical doctors, we do refer to these these citations, right? And there is the Lancet Commission which says access without quality for patients is actually unethical.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about access, let me move to Dr. Nusrat. Her work with marginalized communities, with underserved populations is remarkable. Dr. Nusrat, आपने कैसे use किया है, and do you think it will help or will it just worsen this gap?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mic on.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting us, and thank you, Nargis, Heather. So the question is whether it will help us or not. And I think with the exposure of different communities I have in disasters, as well as conducting medical camps in these rural areas of our coastal belt, as well as working in AKU, there's a huge difference between all of these areas. And I think AI will definitely help us bridge the gap, make us more efficient. For example, when we were discussing offline, I had a program in Chitral during the earthquakes in 2016, and there the destruction was such that a lot of people did not have physical disability or injuries. They basically had a lot of mental trauma, and we wanted to run a mental health program in that community. And we had to have one tool to assess the whole community and then translate into the local language. And it took us so much time, and now this whole process is just one click away. So these are the things where the AI can really help us bridge the gap, make us more efficient. And of course, this is just to augment us, help us in various communities we work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nusrat. Hi, Sarah. Sarah, how is AI transforming the healthcare industry?
AI is transforming healthcare by enhancing diagnostics, personalizing treatment plans, and streamlining operations. It helps in predicting patient outcomes and improving patient care, making the whole system more efficient.
So we hear the same words again and again. It can improve care, it can make us more efficient. How can it improve care? And Dr. Zahra Jamil is doing some very interesting work and how we can actually improve care in a very personalized manner. Zahra.
Okay. So thank you for giving this opportunity to share my work. So what I learned in my PhD is working with undernourished children. 2 years of age. पहले 2 साल बड़े कीमती वो साल होते हैं जिसमें थोड़ा सा भी टाइम अगर वेस्ट हो जाए, so we can never bring back those days. So in our study, what we were doing, we were giving a nutritional intervention to our children, और हम ये देख रहे थे कि क्या उस intervention से उनकी health improve करती है या नहीं करती. So we gave them an intervention. We waited for another 3 months. So it took us 6 months to realize kids who were responding to an intervention versus kids who weren't. And then we were able to make a decision कि जो बच्चे growth improve नहीं कर रहे, we have to move on to plan B. Using the same data, we went to the model, and using the data of only 20 kids into the system, we trained the model. And this model was able to predict with 79% accuracy whether ये बच्चा इस intervention से grow बेहतर करेगा या नहीं करेगा. So instead of wasting 6 months of their critical lives, especially before 2 years of age, we are for our next loop of study, we're able to actually predict which ones would need one intervention augmented with another versus kids who are going to really respond well on one. So this is one use where I really feel that even if this technology is there, we as an underprivileged nation can really make use of it by actually utilizing it in domains जो कि बहुत dear हमें बहुत dear हैं, बाकी दुनिया को नहीं होंगी. For example, undernutrition या malnutrition, we can really put in questions, spark questions which are relevant to our population, and then see how drastically reducing the time and effort that was required to really change the situation in our country, we can really bring it down to at least 4 to 5 times less duration as compared to before.
Thank you, Zahra. So Zahra is talking about a very important area, undernourished. So Pakistan के जो statistics हैं उसमें 4 in every 10 child is stunted, which means कि उसने वो capacity reach नहीं की है जहाँ पे वो probably जाके in the future can contribute to society. And this is a huge loss. So Zahra, I'll pose this to you again. This algorithm that you're talking about was developed with our context. How do you think that is important? Is it important to train AI algorithms to serve really the underserved?
Exactly, you're spot on. So there are two things that are really important. One, we need to really know about where we are currently, and then we should be really clear of where do we want our nation in terms of health to be. If we have a starting point and an ending point, artificial intelligence can really help us devise a plan to design reaching from point A to point B, and then splitting it into smaller sections where we can actually go back to see कि क्या हम progress right direction में कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे हैं. And then for this, we need our own population. We have a huge, almost 60% population less than 30 years of age. So हम बहुत ही एक अच्छे position में हैं in terms of a very young population, a new technology coming in, and if they're actually trained, we'll have enough expertise within जो कि हमारे data driven मॉडल्स को यूज़ करते हुए हमारे अपने इश्यूज़ के रेजोल्यूशन के लिए बेहतर प्रेडिक्शंस कर सकते हैं. So this is a high time for us to really just tweak in, utilize our potential, utilize the tools, and then see wonders in our growth.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I would like to add, because I've been doing medical camps in the whole coastal belt as well as in high-risk UCs of Karachi where we conduct camps. So we have the data, and we can use this data in AI to improve our programs, to have the better access and to predict anything which is needed. For example, we can do a need assessment, put in the data, and then predict that if we have done such intervention, what will be the need in the future. So we can smartly use these tools to help and predict what we need in the future.
Absolutely, you're right. So, Dean Adil, the vision and mission of AKU has been to serve the underserved, to reach out to communities who need us most. How do you think, is there any role of AI in getting us closer to that vision and mission?
Yes. First of all, I'm so glad to see so many people in the audience. And before I begin, let me just ask a question to each one of you. आपने कभी पब्लिक हॉस्पिटल या कोई जिन अस्पताल सिविल अस्पताल गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल के बाहर कभी कोई ओपीडी देखी है जिसमें लोग कतार कितनी लंबी होती है? कभी देखिए, हाथ उठाएं, देखिए आपने, सबने हाथ उठाया. Okay, everybody. That there are, let me just set the stage. There are clinics in Pakistan where you have hundreds of patients who are sitting outside waiting for that 1 minute with the doctor, right? And when you go in there, because the doctor is overwhelmed by the need to see 100 patients for their, for example, cardiology clinic or gastroenterology clinic, they give how much time? They give a minute, 2 minutes, right? So you go in there, please understand there's no medical record. You go in, you may have some file of parcha with some results. You go in, the doctor looks at you, कहता है, oh, this is what I think the problem is. They assess the problem, and then out you go, right? Now, what I think AI can do is AI can truly transform it. Just like I was saying, it is a revolutionary force. And think about what it could be. Think about a world in which instead of you just having all those patients waiting and wasting time, their own time, all this human potential, that you have all these patients who are there, but rather than that, they have a tablet or a phone, and they're talking to an avatar like Sarah. And the avatar takes their full medical history. Think about this world. The avatar takes the full medical history, takes any lab reports, they can take a picture of the lab report or whatever they have with them, and it synthesizes all this data. So that when the patient gets to the doctor, right, the doctor just takes the QR code like this one right here, and then just scans it, and right in front of the doctor, the full SOAP notes shows up. The full assessment of the patient's subjective, objective assessment and plan, SOAP note, right? It shows up, and then the doctor can spend that time actually examining the patient and figuring out what the problem is. And then when they speak about it, just like you spoke to the avatar, then immediately a note gets fully populated with the examination, and then evidence-based guidelines come up. Okay, this is what the patient has, and this is how you should treat him. Can you imagine that world and what that would be like? And I must tell you that that is not far away. I'm sure that we are close, that we have groups that are working on AI platforms that can do this, that can immediately do the full intake, create a plan, and then make sure that the patient is able to disseminate it. That is disseminated well to the patient so the patient can follow it. And the most important part about this, though, by the way, I think for safety reasons, we must ensure that the doctor is fully involved in this. And so Dr. Hoodbhoy, when you ask me, can AI mitigate disparities? I think AI might be the biggest thing that impacts global health, because AI can ensure that the patient is heard, that the patient gets the best possible care with evidence-based guidelines, and that there's somebody with the patient. Patient के साथ एक हामी होगा, जो कि उसका हाथ पकड़ के they will hold their hand and move them forward.
कितने लोगों को डॉक्टर आदिल की बातें सुन के गूज़बम्प्स आ रहे थे, क्योंकि as he was saying, I was imagining कि अगर इस तरह की situations में जहाँ पे access to specialized care इतनी limited है और वहाँ पे हम इस process को facilitate कर सकें, so the impact it can have, we probably can't put it down on paper yet, but is definitely getting much more imaginable. So, Dr. Nusrat, can you give us some more examples to make AI more relatable to our audience?
One example I already told, that once we were doing the telepsychiatry intervention in a disaster setting, we could have used it and would have been much more efficient. Then we do camps in the areas and we can assess the diseases being prevalent, put in the data. Then, sorry. And then use this data to predict what are the future needs. For example, polio eradication. So if we have the data of the whole population, for example, of only our city, हम अपने ही शहर का अगर data ले लें, and then we see कि इस इलाके से हमारे पास cases ज़्यादा आ रहे हैं, then we probably can work on those areas to eradicate polio. मतलब हम अपने दुनिया के अगर statistics में देखें तो हम बहुत ही शर्मिंदगी के साथ बताते हैं कि जी अभी तक हमारे पास polio exist करता है, and that's what we are working along with the other organizations to eradicate polio, and we are conducting medical camps in the suburban areas जहाँ पे refusal rate बहुत ज़्यादा है. So if we can use AI and put in the data, so then we can have prediction how to make it a better plan so that we can work for those communities. That's one example.
Excellent, and thank you for bringing polio in. Unfortunately, there have been 43 cases of polio in Pakistan so far in 2024. It is a concern, it is a rising concern, and if we have local data and it can help us identify hotspots where active campaigns need to be done, can really be revolutionary. And this is where technology like AI can help us. Dr. Jameen, with your work in undernourished children, do you have something to add here?
So just taking this conversation ahead, so beyond health care, even when it comes to making policies that are relevant to our part of the world and where it can really make a difference, AI can really help us. It's all about asking the right question, and then AI will help us bring it down into a plan. So for example, if we really wish to work on policies where we'll be able to eradicate polio, we can provide AI with the current plans. हम अभी कर क्या रहे हैं, किस तरह से कर रहे हैं, and just ask AI to actually suggest 4 or 5 places where we are running short, and they are the key ones which are actually ending up into not reaching our real goal. So this is how AI can really, really well personalize in terms of हमारी अपनी population, हमारा अपना data, हमारी अपनी limitations, and then design us plans which are doable and we can really make a difference. Similarly, when it comes down to any disease, for example, diabetes, we are currently on the top of the list where new diabetic patients are being diagnosed at a speed where no other country is facing. So for us, no other country would really put in an effort to make models to design ways where we can really cater to such problems. Therefore, we need our own perspective, our own data, and then data-driven decisions to actually come down to the real aspect. One last thing that I would like to add is, even while we're putting in a lot of effort in research, बहुत ज़रूरी है हमारे कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कि हम ये ख्याल करें कि क्या ये रिसर्च हम गलत डायरेक्शन में तो यूज़ नहीं कर रहे, या उस रिसर्च का आउटकम हमारे यानी कंट्री में डिफरेंसेस कर पा रहा है, इम्प्लीमेंट क्या नहीं कर पा रहा. So one example is that there was a group who was, for example, funded to work on dengue. What if next year जब funds आ गए उस population में जहाँ ये डिज़ाइन की गई है स्टडी, वहाँ डेंगी का आउटब्रेक ही नहीं होगा? So how are we going to do that? This is where, with all the infections that we have, we can actually model to see when is the next wave coming in and in which region, so to plan beforehand to ensure that all the efforts that are put in, all the money that is put in is actually in the right direction, so that we can have outcomes that are well informed to us to make new decisions.
Thank you, Zara. So pandemic preparedness can definitely be one use.
Probably, yes.
Sarah, how can AI be used in medical imaging?
AI can analyze medical images quickly and accurately, helping detect conditions like tumors or fractures. It enhances radiologists' capabilities by providing insights and reducing human error, leading to better patient outcomes.
So, I mean, all of us have gone through investigations, and we know, I mean, we are the more privileged people, jinke paas access hai, but people may get an X-ray done, but may have nobody to actually read that X-ray properly. So, Dr. Adar, we're talking about all this technology, but how are we making sure that the healthcare professionals, which you alluded to as well, are involved in the process and are trained appropriately to work with technology?
I think this is a question on how we're going to do it. I think that we have not done enough about it. But as I answer the question, let me just make a comment about even if we made policies to say, "Ki somehow doctors need to be involved, yet nurses need to be involved," and so on, I think it's important to remember that culture supersedes policy every time. So what do I mean by that? If you have a culture, for example, at the School of Tomorrow event or at Aahan, where everything starts on time, then aap chahe jitni bhi policy bana le, the culture is the thing that works. And we know of certain places where we all go, like shadiyan, right? Jahan pe the culture is ki agar 9 baje aapka invite hai to 10, 10:30 baje aayenge, right? So that's the culture. So even if वो बेचारा जो दूल्हा वाला है वो चाहे जितना भी लिख दे उसके ऊपर policy कि be there by 8 o'clock, be there by 8 o'clock, it's never happens, right? So that's why creating the culture, if we had a culture that if something was at 9 o'clock, you always have to go to it at 9 o'clock, it would be easier, much more easier to enforce. So similarly, I think what needs to happen is a enabling culture so that healthcare professionals feel that it is part of their job to be involved with technology and AI. For us at Aahan, I can tell you at least one thing is that we created an AI task force, and we have probably the only medical college, because kya hota hai, medical college mein curriculum is very rigid, right? So you cannot add a lot of new stuff. It takes a lot of approvals and such to add new stuff. But we definitely made a small amount of time in our curriculum to put AI into it, so that we are training the doctors of tomorrow in AI. And so to get back to your questions, you know, you can make a situation and create a culture where we all expect that technology is part of our lives and we must use it. And you know, Pakistan, I know we all worry about Pakistan mein privilege kitna hai, do we have these things and so on. But I got to quote a McKinsey report which said that Pakistan has 150 million people that are connected to the internet through all sorts of various ways. So I think we can build on that culture of connectivity to the internet, to digital sources, and then use that to just expect that if you have a physician or any kind of healthcare provider, it is part of their responsibility and job really to be connected with digital technology and know how it can best be used. That should be sort of an expectation, and we all need to enable that culture rather than just creating policies around it.
It's very true, and I believe that culture enabled Dr. Zahra Jamil to use predictive analytics in her PhD work. Dr. Zahra, you want to speak about that, and how do you think you can inspire others to do so as well?
So, coming back...
Zahra, Mike.
Yeah. So coming back to my own experience, I would even take this discussion one step ahead. So yes, these tools are really helpful, and they're able to make models and predict future for us. And this prediction is quite really close to the reality. So for example, maybe अपनी study में, the model was able to predict with 79% accuracy कौन से बच्चे हैं जो respond करेंगे intervention को और कौन से बच्चे नहीं करेंगे. However, what about those 21%? Do I completely rely on the model? This is where I see a lot of role of not only doctors but also teachers. Because if we are not learning side by side with our students, we'll begin to actually miss out on an aspect of artificial intelligence where it still needs to learn. So for example, I teach medical students as well. So मैं क्लास में क्या करती हूँ, अक्सर हम कभी जब डिस्कशन कोई पढ़ा रहे होते हैं, आप लोगों ने सब ने देखा होगा कि मेडिकली अगर आप मुझसे पूछेंगे तो जो डिम्पल बनता है, दैट्स एक्चुअली अ डिफेक्ट इन द मसल्स, जबकि हम उसको ब्यूटी के पर्सपेक्टिव में देखते हैं. So I often, whatever we are teaching, I often bring up questions so that the students can actually look around on ChatGPT and other AI available softwares to answer. So that it's learning for me कि how many times does it really answers correct versus how many times does it answer wrong. So just recently we went back to see कि कौन सी muscle का defect है जिससे ये dimple पड़ जाता है. So the chat answer was actually wrong. So it was just not learning for me, but students को भी they realized that they cannot solely depend on these models. So two things that are really important. Yes, we have to utilize the tool while knowing its limitation. And once the limitation is there, we are always and always going to think around. So as humans, हमारा role इसीलिए minus नहीं हो जाता कि for example वो जो 25% children हैं who may still not respond, yet the model is predicting कि वो respond कर लेंगे intervention को. We need to have our plan B really planned early in the studies to ensure कि हम उनके बारे में भी क्या सोचेंगे. So ethics and the validity of use of AI is two things which I really feel should go hand in hand when we use it to move ahead.
Excellent example.
Can I just make a comment to that?
Yes, absolutely.
There's a reason why Dr. Zehra every other year wins our best teacher award. So आपके लिए जरा मैं तालियां तो बजवा दूं. You know, this whole thing with the dimple, even I thought that dimple is a sign of, you know, we've been programmed to say dimple is a sign of beauty, but आप बता रही हैं कि, you know, it's actually and she's an anatomist, so we're going to have to listen.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Zehra. So you bring up a very important point that when we use all these tools, it's important to work with people who are building these tools. And that brings me to my next question. Dr. Nusrat, if you could reflect on that, what do you think the role of cross-industry collaborations is? So we need industry partners, we need engineering partners, we need, of course, the medical doctors, we need policy makers. How do you think all this will come together?
Oh, that's a huge task because
Absolutely.
people work in silos and
Yes.
they think that, oh, हम इस मामले में best हैं, हमें ज़रूरत नहीं कि किसी और से बात भी करें. So once you have to break the ice and talk to people, and then it has to be a very huge collaborative effort. If we have to have success and have all of these stakeholders which you are alluding to, so it's a big task, but it's doable. There has to be a will. अगर हम करना चाहें तो हम सब कुछ कर सकते हैं और पाकिस्तानियों ने ये हर जगह प्रूव किया हुआ है. I mean, the way we have dealt COVID is an example to the world that we can do it. So similarly, if we have to bring all of these stakeholders together, I'm sure we can do it. We just need to have one or two people who have the drive to do it, and then we can combine all of these people and have a very good solution, you know. So I think it can be done.
Bilkul. Tina Adil,
You know, I think that conferences like this will help bring people together. And I want to actually thank all the people in the audience जो अपना संडे को आप बजाइए कि ब्रंच कर रहे हो इस वक्त बैठ के बोर्ड क्लब में आप यहाँ पे बैठे हुए हैं कि सुनने के लिए. So thank you. अपने लिए भी तालियां बजा लें एक मेरे ख्याल से. Very good. Thank you. And I just want to note, you know, I think, you know, आपने जैसे कहा ना cross field, I see अभी पीछे अतर ओसामा आके बैठे हैं. He's like a world expert on AI. अब वो सुनेंगे medical health के बारे में. वो थोड़े परेशान हो गए हैं कि I'm calling him out. You can say hi, Athar. Okay, there you go. You know, he's gonna now people like him will hear will be part of the dialogue. Professor Suhail Naqvi is sitting right in the front row, who's been the VC of LUMS and of course the rector of UCA. You know, he's in the education and all the science field. So I think like having conferences and dialogue like we are having here today, we can really contribute to moving all of this forward. I also want to make one quick comment.
Sure.
I saw you were flashing some questions. So can I jump onto a question that they asked? Which was...
we'll do that in the last.
Were you going to do that?
Yes,
All right.
we will. So thank you very much. I mean, it's important to bring the right people on the table. And we have last 5 minutes for the panel discussion before we move to the questions. And questions maybe वो आना शुरू हो गया है. Is the topic regarding ethics, right? So when we keep potential inequity in mind, what should people like us who may be driving the change here keep in mind in terms of privacy, in terms of ethics, and potential sources of bias that AI may bring along? Zehra, maybe we start with you.
Yeah. So this is where it's really important to work on the literacy of the medical students today, because इवन इफ हम AI को यूज़ कर रहे हैं, दोस्त जो कि अब से 2 साल बाद 5 साल बाद ग्रेजुएट करके निकलेंगे, दे विल बी एक्चुअली इनटू द मार्केट वेयर AI would be really in every aspect of our lives. So for example, sharing any data pertinent to identification of the patients. Once it's on the cloud, there's no way we can retrieve it. So there has to be a lot of ethics that needed to be taken care of by the healthcare personnel themselves. And this is only going to come back to the point where we are actually incorporating the ethical use of AI in our medical education very early into the curriculum. So this is one aspect. Then again, even in research, when we are using AI, we ensure that we code the patient's identity and then put it into the model. Why? Because once it's into the model, there are ways where breach of ethics can actually lead to release of that data and identification of our study participants as well. So similarly, even for research, we really need to make sure that we are literate enough to figure out ways to ensure that the identification of our participants or the patients are hidden. That's really, really important for us.
Absolutely. Dr. Nusrat, you work with vulnerable populations, marginalized in several ways, जिनको आप, I mean, not possibly the best word, but exploit कर सकते हैं. What are your thoughts regarding that?
Exactly. I think I agree with Zara, because look, data leak is one problem which exists in AI. So you know that this tool exists, you know this data exists. Now the custodian of that data has to be smart enough to use the tool in a correct manner so that the data is not leaked out or it is safe with us. So as she said, that the patients and the participants are not identifiable in the data. So that's what people like us have to do smartly, so that the data, even if the data is leaked, it has no value for the people who have have the access to. So all of these marginalized communities, there's a wealth of data, and we can use it to our planning of the future for the things that can be helped on all of these communities.
Absolutely. Dean Heather, as a leader of a healthcare organization, जहाँ बहुत sensitive private data है, what is your on ethics and the potential sources of bias that may come in?
So, very humbly, and मैं अब faculty lounge में जाने से डरूंगा थोड़ा सा, I'm going to actually disagree with you here. And my disagreement is based on the fact that I've seen in our context, when you bring in structure and systems, you actually end up improving the ethics of it. तो आपने कोई चीज़ कभी होती है when we could go get something done, और आपने कोई काम कराना होता है, किसी चीज़ कर लें फिर वो कर ही देते हैं. अगर it's all computerized, वो system करने ही नहीं देगा आपको, right? It's so you have to follow the rules, you have to do the right thing. So I think AI and when computerizing system will bring a sort of democracy and level playing field to everybody. And I think the advantage of that is going to be huge. Now you are right that there is a concern about data leakage, जैसे आपने कहा, or bias in how we do the interpretation. But I think that these things are easily manageable, and that these things, in चीज़ों के लिए, the world has set standards, right? We shouldn't develop our own standards, but for example, for healthcare, we just follow HIPAA, right? The Healthcare Information and Portability Access Act. And we just make sure that our levels are the same as that, or the European. So a lot of people have spent a lot of time figuring out about the data, and a lot of our people in Pakistan are extremely well versed in that. So we just need to follow the international protocols, and I think all of that will be fine. The upside is so much larger that I would not restrict progress because we're worried about who's going to have the data and so on.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed hosting this panel. I hope you enjoyed listening to us as well. And I would like to now open the floor for questions. I know we have some coming in already. Actually, we have many, not some. So the panelists, gear yourself, because now the audience is going to ask you. Okay, let's start with the first one. How can AI enhance emergency response systems? Dr. Nusrat, आपको देख के किसी ने सवाल किया.
Okay, so working in many disasters, I think AI can definitely, because each disaster response is different. For example, floods response is different from the earthquake response, from the COVID response. So each disaster itself is different and needs a different response. So AI can definitely give us guidelines, enhance our learning, train the people who are going to be in the field, and then we can use AI very efficiently to improve our response in all of these disasters.
Absolutely, and for those who may be interested, there's a very interesting report called AI in Global Health that was published now about 5 years ago, but is very relevant, and one thing that it speaks about is emergency preparedness and disaster response. Our next question, which medical fields are likely to experience job reductions due to rise of AI? And Dean Heather is all ready to answer that.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted to look at, actually. So, so the question is, which fields are likely to experience job reductions? And I want, aap mujhse likh ke le lein. The job reductions will not happen. Only job increases will come from it, okay? Especially in healthcare. Now, let me give an example of one job that you may have seen that the internet has usne khatam kar diya. And the job is of a travel agent. It's not completely gone. There are lots of travel agents. But the number of travel agents, for example, one might imagine has gone down because now you can simply book everything online. So you might say to yourself, "Ji, oh, kitna bura hua travel agents ke liye." But actually, I don't think you need to look at it that way. If you look at the number of people who are now traveling by air, the number of airlines, all those things have gone up dramatically because of the accessibility and ease and safety that has occurred because of digital technology in the airline industry. And so if you think of it that way, the number of people who are now part of that travel industry has gone up dramatically. So what did the digital solutions do? It actually increased the number of people who are employed versus taking away jobs. And I'm certain that we're going to see the same across AI and in particular in healthcare.
Thank you. The next question, can AI help track pandemic spread?
Yes. So this is for surely. We've already seen, and Dr. Nusrat is with us, that using the data from our own population during COVID, we had our own response, which was actually devised on the data of our own population, and we did really well as compared to all the other, many other parts of the world, other countries. So therefore, yes, it can surely actually predict, not only predict, but also plan how to actually execute a plan where we can bring down to minimize the impact of any pandemic. So AI for surely, yes.
So our own data and our own solutions to the problems is key here, and AI is going to be that augmenter, that catalyst here, I would say. Very interesting question. Can AI help doctors diagnose patients using regional languages? अब उर्दू नहीं, हम regional languages की बात कर रहे हैं.
Well, if they have the system of translating into regional languages, for sure, why not? I mean, I'm sure it can be done.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So I would just like to add, it's not just doctors. हमारे पास lady health workers, जिनकी because their reach doctors से कहीं ज़्यादा rural areas में है. So अगर हमारे पास हम अपने AI bots को train कर सकें, where वो अपने regional language में उससे सवाल करेंगी, and that bot is going to generate solutions for her in her own context, जो उसके अपने पास जो facilities, जो abilities हैं, and then help her take decision then and there, because हमारे पास transport और बहुत ज़्यादा limitations हैं. So yes, that is another way forward where we can see tremendous growth and improvement in our healthcare.
So next time SOT पे हो सकता है हम पश्तो में conversation कर रहे हैं with the AI avatar. We don't know, next year maybe. Okay, so the next question is Aga Khan, okay, my clearly challenge, by any means planning to bring in robotic arms in surgery, as it's already collaborating with Salim Habib in this regard?
I'm not going to give a AKU policy answer, but let me give a more, because that would make no sense in this audience. But let me give an answer about the opportunity to partner with the local and other colleagues across Pakistan. I think it's imperative for all of us to work together to use all the resources we have amongst one another. And I can assure you that Aga Khan University and the president of the university, Dr. Sulaiman Shahabuddin, really has been promoting this, and we're all with him in it, that we want to ensure AKU's presence in Pakistan is regarded as a national asset. And that is not just the people who have the privilege of working there today, but this thing is truly, was a gift, was something built by the Aga Khan for this country and for this region. And so it behooves all of us who work there to ensure we're working with the best and brightest from across Pakistan, no matter where they are, in the government sector, in the not-for-profit sector, in the public sector, whatever it is, it behooves us to work with those colleagues and do the best that we can in those kind of partnerships. And I'm proud to say that just on this stage, the two colleagues that I'm sitting next to, both of them have incredible partnerships, both in Pakistan and internationally, especially with your teaching partnerships in lesser developed parts of the world, even outside Pakistan, Dr. Jamil. You'll see a lot of us doing that, and that's the way future, and I'm very proud to be part of Aga Khan in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, it is a privilege to be trained and to be part of a university like this. So as we move towards the closing of the session, and thank you very much for engaging with us through the discussions, are there any last few sentences that you would like to leave us with, key messages that the audience sitting in this room could walk out with? Dr. Jamil, let's start with you.
So if I were to leave you all with a key message, I strongly believe that just like sports, we need to identify very young children in our population who are more mathematics savvy, or they're more into mathematics. So to identify and train them and take them through the data science as early as their undergrad, and then have our own population ready to actually work in as a task force to use all these tools to really have our country placed at a better place as compared to today.
Dr. Nushat, your last takeaways.
Okay. So in general, all of us are not very savvy for a change. We don't accept change so easily. So all of us, be it doctors, be it otherwise, with any profession, we should not be scared of AI. We should make it our friend and use it to our own advantage for our own population. And I think it's about time, if we have not started to learn it, this is the time, high time, that we should learn it, embrace it, and use it for our own benefit.
Thank you. Dean Heather.
Well, before I give some comments, I'd love to hear what you think, because you're the person who runs a giant program on AI to diagnose kids doing AI-based ultrasound, and I've been seeing that, and I don't know if people got to hear from you, so we'd love to hear just a little bit about what you do.
Thank you very much. I am clearly an AI enthusiast, so hosting this panel. But I, like Dr. Nusrat, work in these underserved communities where we know access to technology and quality care is limited. So the work we're trying to do is, can we use technology and AI-enabled algorithms to pick up those who need care, who are at risk, so what we call as risk stratification at community level, so we can direct patient. This person can be managed in the community at a primary care setting, but this person needs a tertiary center like a public or a private institution. So that has been my work. But I mean, this panel, I think the key takeaways for myself, and I hope the audience are also, it is here to augment us and augment the care we provide to our patients by making it efficient, providing access and quality. But it can do that if we break barriers, start working with collaborators from tech, from engineering, and then of course thinking how we ensure that the data we're using is serving our own population, क्योंकि ये हमारी दुनिया है, हमारा context है और हमारी जिम्मेदारी है इसको solve करना. So those would be my little thing that I would take away from this 1-hour session. But
अच्छा, मैंने इनसे सवाल इसलिए पूछा था because I know you would lay the groundwork for what I'm about to say, all right? Because I knew you'd do that. I think that AI, just like and other people have said this, just not me, but the way electricity has revolutionized the world, AI will, inshallah, revolutionize healthcare as well. And it will do that for all the different industries. I think the way we're going to see this is because AI will become a true ally to all of us, right, in how we receive healthcare. Right in the front row, my two cousins are sitting there, very dear to me, and I must tell you about allies. When people are sick in the hospital, how many of you will call somebody you know who happens to be in the healthcare sector and you can say, doctor ne ye kaha, hame kya karna chahiye wo? right? आप करते हैं ना? You do it. I think that AI will become that kind of an ally, that will be your trusted person that you can turn to in your time of need. I really think it's possible. And I think if we look to the future with an openness to change, we can use this incredible technology to spread light around the world, just like electricity turns on the lights in villages whenever it gets there. So thank you very much for having us on this panel. It's really a lot of fun.
Thank you very much. I hope that next time hum और AI avatars type. So Sarah, thank you as well for being there with us. Thank you to our wonderful audience. We saw this room fill up with and pose really good questions to us, which has hopefully made this discussion engaging. Thank you, of course, to SOT Events for having us here. Please use the app to give us feedback, and to SOT. Thank you all, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.